The wait is over and the Supreme Court has spoken. They have decided that Kenyans will not go back to the polls and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will be sworn in as Kenya's fourth president. The Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga delivered the landmark ruling of the six-judge bench this afternoon, and it was unanimous. The polls were free and fair. And as the news sank in, the petitioner, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, accepted the court's decision, bringing an end to weeks of political uncertainty. Good evening, I'm Linda Ogutu, and this is our continuing special coverage of the Supreme Contest. Right, in a short while we shall also be speaking to some of our reporters across the country, that is including Mercy Kandia in Eldoret and Carol Nderi in Nyeri, to get reactions really from the people who voted on the 4th of March. But first to a Super Bowl where Ann Kiguta has an indication of what next after this verdict.
Thanks very much, Linda, for that, and good evening to our audiences watching in Kenya and around the world. Certainly a historic decision has been made today, and in a short while I'll be telling you the plans that are underway to get Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, I beg your pardon, back into his official residence where he was born, State House. It's a plan that was set in motion, of course, when he was declared president-elect, and one that is now underway to ensure that on the 9th of April he will be sworn in as president. I'll have more from the Super Bowl in a short while, but let's cross over to our Joy Doreen Bira. Joy, you'll be giving us reactions from the continent really on this historic day.
That's right. We're going to be hearing from East Africans and what they say and think about, the entire election petition. And also we're going to be hearing from them in regard to what they think on the way forward. Has Kenya set a precedent in terms of democracy, in terms of the judiciary as well, and the jurisprudence that has so far become so popular? So we'll be speaking to people from Uganda, from Rwanda, from South Africa as well, just to hear what they have to say about the election petition ruling. Back to you, Linda.
Joy Doreen, thank you very much. Of course, we'll be getting back to you in just a few minutes for that. Let's take a look at the top stories tonight.
It is the decision of the court that the third and fourth respondents were validly elected.
Uhuru it is. Supreme Court upholds IEBC results.
In this regard, I wish the President-elect, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and his team well.
What next for Raila? Court lead accepts court verdict.
We are so much happy today with the ruling of the Court of Kenya.
Today I'm very much impressed by the court, the Supreme Court, for their very nice decision. We are happy they have agreed anonymously.
Tears and anger, mixed reactions to court ruling. And taking office, date set for Uhuru's inauguration. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's take a look at the main events that have taken place today. Of course, it has been one that will go down in the history of Kenya. The Supreme Court finally gave its ruling on the presidential petition, with the six-judge bench making a unanimous decision on the petition that challenged the credibility of the March 4th general election and the declaration of Uhuru Kenyatta as the president-elect of the country. In its ruling, the court dismissed petition 3, 4, and 5. The court ruled that the March 4th general election was free, fair, transparent, and in accordance with the law. The court went further to rule that Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were validly elected as the president and deputy president. It is a ruling that saw the court make a ruling on the rejected votes as well, and on that they ruled that rejected votes ought not to have been included in the final tally of the March 4th general election. Now the ruling means that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will be sworn in as the President of the Republic of Kenya on the 9th of April 2013, the first Tuesday, 7 days after the ruling by the Supreme Court as stipulated by the Constitution. It is then that Uhuru is expected to take his oath of office that will officially make him the fourth President of the Republic of Kenya. A few hours after that ruling by the Supreme Court, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who was the fifth petitioner in this case, called a press briefing in which he accepted the decision of the court. Raila made it clear that his decision to challenge the results of the election was a reflection of his faith in the judiciary and that he did not harbor any personal grudge against anyone. Raila pledged to abide by the court's decision, saying not accepting the ruling will make it difficult for the country to move on. He wished President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta and his team well. So those are the events, the main events that have taken place. Of course, it has been a very eventful day with the Supreme Court giving its ruling on that presidential petition. The ruling that was given today essentially means that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta remains the president-elect of the Republic of Kenya. Let's take a look at what happened this afternoon at the Supreme Court.
After extensive deliberations, we are happy to announce the Supreme Court has reached a unanimous decision on all the four issues that fell for the determination in presidential election petitions number 3, 4, and 5 as consolidated. The following is the unanimous decision of the court. 1. As to whether the presidential election held on March 4th, 2013 was conducted in a free, fair, transparent, and credible manner in compliance with the provisions of the Constitution and all relevant provisions of the law. It is the decision of the compliance with the Constitution and the law. As to whether the third and fourth respondents were validly elected and declared as President-elect and Deputy President-elect of the Republic of Kenya, respectively, by the second respondent in the presidential elections held on 4th March 2013, it is the decision of the court that the third and fourth respondents were validly elected. As to whether the rejected votes ought to have been included in determining the final tally of votes in favor of each of the presidential candidates by the second respondent, it is the decision of the court that such rejected votes ought not to have been included in calculating the final tallies in favor of each presidential candidate. As to what consequential declarations, orders, and reliefs that this honorable court ought to grant based on the above determinations, the following are orders of the court. Petition number 5 of the consolidated petitions is hereby dismissed. Petition number 4 of the consolidated petitions is hereby dismissed. As to petition number 3 of the consolidated petitions, the prayer by the petitioners seeking a declaration of recomputation of percentages by the second respondent is declined, as the court has no jurisdiction. Regarding orders as to costs, the court orders that each party bears its own costs. The detailed judgment containing reasons for decision of the court will be issued within 2 weeks from today. Orders accordingly.
Right, moments after the Supreme Court gave its verdict on the presidential petition, Prime Minister Raila Odinga addressed the nation, respecting the decision of the court. Raila, accompanied by members of his court team, wished his President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta well in running the country. Up next is Raila's full statement.
So, I can see that the House is full. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, good evening. It's taking a little longer because this is now a different statement. But I have a statement that I'm going to read on the judgment of the Supreme Court, which has just been delivered some minutes ago. You will recall that on 9th of March this year, I issued a statement on the conduct of the election which had just been concluded. I expressed my deep gratitude to all Kenyans who had turned out massively to exercise their democratic rights to vote and elect their leaders. I, however, express my dismay that, contrary to the expectations of Kenyans, we witnessed the failure of virtually every instrument the IEBC had deployed to ensure free, fair, and transparent elections. I outlined such failures with concrete examples of the anomalies that all of us witnessed. It was clear that the constitutionally sanctioned process of electing new leaders had been thwarted again by another tainted election. Democracy was on trial in Kenya. But that has not dented my commitment to constitutionalism and the rule of law. Enforcing the spirit and letter of the Constitution remains the only sure way to peace and prosperity for our young democracy. My decision to file a petition in the Supreme Court to challenge the validity of the election was a testament of my faith in the independence of our judiciary. We did so for the sake of our democracy and for the sake of all Kenyans who wanted to exercise their constitutional right to elect their leaders through free and fair elections. We were joined in this endeavor by AFRICOG, which separately filed a petition seeking to nullify the 4th of March presidential election. This proves that our petition had nothing to do with personal grudge as contended by the IEBC, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and Honorable William Ruto. In the petition, I express our belief that the court would uphold the letter and spirit of our Constitution. I pledge to abide by the court decision. We prosecuted the case to the best of our ability. Our legal team, led by Senior Counsel George Oraro, compiled a formidable and logical evidence showing that massive malpractices occurred during the election. We unearthed evidence of technology failure that required a full audit, inappropriate conduct on the part of IBC staff, irregular and unethical arrangements such as the sharing of servers by IBC with a competitor and unmarked registers. We regret that the court disallowed evidence on the grounds that it was either filed late or the court did not have time to inquire into these discrepancies. In the end, Kenyans lost their right to know what indeed happened. Ladies and gentlemen, the court has now spoken. Article 140 of our Constitution states that the Supreme Court shall hear and determine the petition, and its decision is final. Although we may not agree with some of its findings, and despite all the anomalies we have pointed out, our belief in constitutionalism remains supreme. Casting doubt on the judgment of the court could lead to higher political and economic uncertainty and make it more difficult for our country to move forward. We must soldier on in our resolve to reform our politics and institutions. Respect for the supremacy of the Constitution in resolving disputes between fellow citizens is the surest foundation of our democratic society. and the courts should always act within the evolving constitutional culture. I and my brother and running mate, Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, have no regrets for taking our case to court. Indeed, it is our view that this court process is yet another milestone in our long road towards democracy for which we have fought for so long. Truth, justice, and the faithful implementation of the Constitution is our best guarantee to peace and security. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my hope that the incoming government will have fidelity to our Constitution and implement it to the letter for the betterment of our people. And in this regard, I wish the President-elect, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and his team well. I also wish all the senators, members of parliament, women representatives, governors, and others who were elected in the last elections success in discharging the expectations of our people. I want to thank Senior Counsel George Oraro and the members of his legal team for their hard work and devotion in the quest for justice. I would also like to pay special tribute to the AFRICOG legal team led ably by Kathy Kilonzo for their immense contribution to the rule of law and democracy. To the Kenyans who supported us, in our petition, I want to assure you that I will continue to work for you and with you to build our country, Kenya, and to help you achieve your dreams. Our actions have always been guided by our desire to bring about a better life for all Kenyans, particularly those who are less privileged. The future of Kenya is bright. Let us not allow the elections to divide us. Let us reunite as a nation. Finally, I call on all Kenyans, our supporters and opponents alike, to remember the sacred words of our national anthem: justice be our shield and defender. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless Kenya.
Raila Odinga, they are accepting the ruling of the Supreme Court. Of course, that press briefing was given earlier on today, really. And we expect another press briefing by President-elect Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. We're keeping an eye on that for you. And when he holds that press briefing, of course, we will interrupt this broadcast and we will go live to listen into what he has to say. And the Jubilee legal team members have expressed their joy at the ruling of the Supreme Court that went in their favor. The petition, which had sought to challenge the declaration of Uhuru Kenyatta as the winner of the March general elections, was unanimously rejected by the 6 judges bench of the Supreme Court. The lawyers spoke at the Consolata Shrine, where they had gone for Thanksgiving prayers after the ruling.
We believe that is part of implementing the new constitution, improving on the democratic processes of the country, and we are most glad that it has come the way it has come.
It's possibly the most difficult case any lawyer has ever conducted in Kenya, but the lawyers conducted the case very, very well, exemplarily. The announcement or the decision was very, very well done within the time that was prescribed. But all that is now behind us. We've moved forward as one nation.
I'm very, very elated. I'm very happy that finally we've brought this election process to a close. And I agree with those who say that it's a win for the country, it's a win for the institutions. The IEBC, the judiciary has been vindicated.
And let me say with a lot of humility that we are thrilled to bits. It is a big triumph for our clients politically. From a legal viewpoint, it is a challenging brief. There is no underestimating the challenges that we faced, but also exciting in the sense that we were accorded the singular opportunity to explore the limits of the Constitution.
Jubilee team there celebrating the ruling that was given earlier on today by the Supreme Court, the 6-judge bench earlier on today. And of course, that is a ruling that favored the Jubilee side, really, which essentially means that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will be Kenya's 4th president. He is the president-elect. He is expected to be sworn in on the 9th of April 2013 to take the seat of the President of the Republic of Kenya, essentially making his way back to his childhood home, that is the State House. We're looking at the reactions from all over the country. Let's now bring in Fred Omulo, who is in Kisumu. Fred, we understand that there was a little bit of disturbance earlier on. Could you tell us what was going on, Fred?
Hello. Well, so far there have been 2 fatalities and 11 casualties in the region. We've just confirmed those statistics from the Red Cross. The 2 people succumbed to their injuries after protests erupted minutes after the announcement by the Supreme Court that they were dismissing the petitions lodged there by the Court Alliance and various other interested parties. The peace messages that were being echoed here all week simply just disappeared, and skirmishes erupted everywhere. But the police moved in very quickly, and small contingents of about 10 to 20 policemen were dealing with most of the protests. Basically what they were doing, they were blocking the busy roads around here in Kisumu town. For example, at Kondele, where two of those who succumbed to their injuries were taken from, they blocked the Kondele car wash road and they were lighting bonfires there. But the police quickly moved in, and they chased away the protesters. Many of them were milling around, throwing stones at the police, engaging them in running battles. We also had a few other protests here within Kisumu in places like Juakali, where bonfires were lit, around the general stage area, as well as near the municipal market. There were also protests there, and also in Nyalenda Estate on the lower side of Kisumu and Nyamasaria. Beyond Kisumu County, we also had those skirmishes in places like Ahero, at the junction with Ahero to Katito, in Homa Bay town, as well as in Migori and Awendo areas. And in those places, the protests are said to have been much smaller than what was happening here in Kisumu. The police in those cases as well moved in and dealt with them. Within an hour or two after the protests began at around 5:36, most of all those areas were calm. However, the exception was Siaya County. You know, Siaya County is actually the home county of Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He comes from Bondo constituency, and his brother Oburu actually represented the area for about 20 years. And Siaya was completely calm. All the 6 constituencies in the area were completely calm. There are no skirmishes there, at least from the reports that we had by the time that we were going on air. So that is the situation right here. We are still watching. Kisumu has, most shops were completely shut down. Most entertainment spots have closed down. And there's a sense of an eerie calm, some sort of tension. But it's dissipating as fast as it built up. That is the situation. We'll be waiting to watch how the night goes and what probably transpires tomorrow, depending on how the leaders as well as the voters, the electorate, react. That is the situation here in Kisumu so far.
Fred Omulo there reporting from Kisumu. Quite unfortunate turn of events there in Kisumu. 2 people lost their lives in some small skirmishes, small pockets of skirmishes that erupted after that ruling by the Supreme Court. Of course, this dampens the spirit of any Kenyan watching that, because Kenyans had actually made up their minds that whichever way this ruling was going to go, this is their country, they have to uphold the peace in it. We hope the peace in Kisumu can be maintained, can be upheld. Of course, you're watching KTN. Thank you so much for staying with us. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta now begins the road back to his childhood home, that is the State House. And of course, that is after that verdict was given by the Supreme Court. Anne Kiguta now takes a look at what next, really, Anne.
Absolutely. And you know, Linda, Article 138 spells out the different scenarios. We've already seen one where there was, of course, that challenge at the courts. But here is scenario number 2, where the courts do uphold the election victory. Let's open up the super wall now and show you what is expected in coming days. Uhuru Kenyatta will be sworn in as President of the Republic of Kenya on the 9th of April, and that day will be a public holiday. Of course, leading up to this event, he has already been receiving detailed security briefs from various organs in the country, including the NIS, the DOD, and other security organs as well. He has been receiving briefs from the Public Service Secretary, from the Cabinet Secretary, and now properly will be Commander-in-Chief on that date. Let's move on and see what else is happening. That event will be held at the Moi International Sports Center in Kasarani, and of course he will only be eligible to run for another term in office, which means a total of 2 terms of 5 years each. As we move on now, he is expected to receive the instruments of power. Really, 2 important things that will happen. One, he'll receive the skimtar, which is the ceremonial military sword. It signifies the monopoly of power, the monopoly of violence. That is what makes him Commander-in-Chief. And also, he will be receiving a copy of the Constitution. He is supposed to be the supreme defender of that law. Well, he will also be taking 2 oaths of office on that particular day. I beg your pardon. Let's listen now live to President-elect Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
We welcome and respect the verdict of the judges. Following the upholding of the electoral outcome, as announced by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, I wish to assure all Kenyans that the ruling of the Supreme Court is not a victory for the Jubilee coalition and its partners. Rather, the ruling is a victory for all Kenyans who turned up on the 4th of March this year to undertake a civic duty by participating in a democratic process that is crucial to the continued good governance of our country. I want to assure all Kenyans, including those who did not vote for the Jubilee coalition, and indeed even those who challenged the validity of my election, that my government will work with and serve all Kenyans without any discrimination whatsoever. I want to assure Kenyans that our government will be as inclusive as possible and will reflect the face of our great country. Personally, I sincerely thank my brother, the Honorable Raila Odinga, for wishing us well, and indeed reach out to him and our other worthy competitors to join us so that we can work together in the interest of the well-being of our people. I call upon all Kenyans from across the entire political divide to now rise above the partisanship of the recent electoral contest and to join hands in building our country. Let us all renew our sense of nationhood, and let us rededicate ourselves to building a united country at peace with itself. I also call upon religious and civil society leaders to continue playing their role in the process of national healing that is needed after a heated electoral contest. To all wananchi, I urge you all to accept that the elections are over and we must now continue living together as members of one family. Let us rise above the differences of the electoral period and continue coexisting peacefully as brothers and sisters. Above all, let us all continue to pray for peace in our country. Finally, let me take this opportunity to congratulate the judges of the Supreme Court for delivering a verdict under extremely constrained timelines. I also congratulate all counsel.
Uhuru's election as Kenya's 4th president got a clean bill of health. The European Union softened their hardline stance of sanctioning the country in case of Uhuru presidency. EU Chairman Jose Manuel Barroso has sent a congratulatory message to Uhuru Kenyatta following the Supreme Court's decision to uphold Uhuru's presidency. Equally, the UK Prime Minister David Cameron, in a congratulatory letter to the President-elect, Cameron underlined his commitment to the partnership that exists between Kenya and the UK. Cameron described the Kenya-United Kingdom relationship as deep and historic, with a substantial shared agenda of stability, security, development and prosperity that benefits both countries. France, another European Union nation, has also congratulated Uhuru Kenyatta as president-elect. France President François Hollande, in congratulating Uhuru, says he considers Kenya an important partner in Eastern Africa, expressing his desire to continue France's cooperation with Kenya in many social, political and economic spheres. The French president saluted Uhuru's commitment to peace in the just-ended general election. So those are the messages that have been coming in for President-elect Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Now, the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Isaac Hassan, has described the ruling by the Supreme Court as both a precedent and a landmark decision which will guide future elections in Kenya. In a statement sent to newsrooms this evening, Hassan said the election was very involving, starting from voter registration, inspection of the register, nominations and finally the elections. The Commission thanked the petitioner Prime Minister Raila Odinga for his approach to the resolution of his grievances. Hassan also thanked the respondents for equally embracing the unifying role of judicial settlements of disputes. The Electoral Commission added that there are no winners and losers in this case and urged Kenyans to remain united and peaceful. So for a moment there, Kenya was on the spot, not just in the region, but all over the world. Of course, every single person was looking at Kenya as we awaited the ruling by the Supreme Court on the presidential petition. Joy Doreen Bira now has a couple of people out of this country to talk about what they witnessed and really what the expectations were, even as we waited for this ruling. Joy.
Well, thank you so much, Linda Ogutu. And that's right, we've got just about 2 people on our Google Hangout. Very important people, though, who are going to be giving us an insight on what they think about the entire election petition and also the Supreme Court ruling, and just about how Kenyans have kept calm all throughout the days that the election petition hearing was ongoing. And joining us tonight on our Google Hangout is the Uganda Law Society Secretary General Nicholas Opio, and that is in Uganda. And we also have Sanjay Tana, who is the Member of Parliament, Tororo Municipality. They're here basically to talk about this petition ruling because of their backgrounds. One is a politician and the other is the Secretary General for the Uganda Law Society. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on tonight's Google Hangout. So I will start with Nicholas. Nicholas, from your legal background, let me hear from you. What are your sentiments or your thoughts towards the election petition?
First and foremost, congratulate the Kenyan people, the Kenyan judiciary and the Kenyan legal fraternity on a very exquisite, well-presented, well-argued and calm judicial process. I followed the judicial process on your TV, online, and I must admit I was quite impressed by the way our land friends in Kenya acquitted themselves. I think from the manner of presentation, the detail of discussion, the preciseness of their presentation, the Kenyan judiciary and the Kenyan people ought to be very proud of the justice system that they have built. It's the envy of many countries in the region, and certainly speaking for Uganda, it's the envy for Uganda, and I think that it's an excellent job, and I congratulate the Kenyan people once again.
Well, thanks, Nicholas. And I'll now move on to Honorable Sanjay Tana. What are your thoughts in regard to the fact that you come from a political background and as a Member of Parliament? I mean, we've not seen a publicly aired petition in Uganda. This, for Kenya, is a first. But I would like to hear from you on your side. What does this mean for East Africa and Uganda as well?
Joy, allow me also to congratulate the people of Kenya. More so the judiciary, just like Obi has just said. For us in Uganda, we have found the whole process, the unraveling of the whole process, from the setup of the IEBC and the registration process, the actual casting of the votes, the reconciliation, the failure of the electronic system, and going manual, and then going ahead, agree to go manual, and thereafter going to court. And like you said, the petition was multifaceted. It was from the candidates, it was from the NGOs, TSOs, the community services as well. And you found a very, very young lawyer, the lady, I keep on missing her name. I think she did wonderfully well. What was a surprise to me, considering the whole process, myself, I least expected, let me put it that way, a unanimous judgment from the judges, because normally the law is interpreted differently by different people. I think that the unanimous decision does send a very, very clear message to the Kenyan people and to other people who are outside the electoral process and outside Kenya, including ourselves. The interpretation of the law and how the electoral process was carried out in regard with the law. I think it was a brilliant judgment, and in my own opinion, hats off, like I said last time, hats off to the Kenyan people, to the legal fraternity. And I think the winner in this all is Honorable Raila. I listened to his acceptance. And, it took a brave man, it took a great man, and I feel envious of the Kenyan people today, because I see you now having 3 living statespersons, in my own opinion. You have President Moi, you have President Kibaki, and I think the Kenyan people have now Honorable Raila Odinga as a statesman, just by accepting honorably.
Hey, let me just cut you short a little and get back to Nicholas. Nicholas, I would like to hear from you in as far as the unanimous decision by the 6 judges is concerned. From the legal background that you have, what do you have to say about the fact that all 6 judges unanimously rejected Raila Odinga's petition?
Well, first to congratulate the Kenyan judiciary. I think they had a very short time to come up with a detailed decision, and they just did that for the Kenyan people. That's excellent. Now, unanimous decisions on a court bench normally indicate just how clear the provisions or the evidence put before the court is. It shouldn't come as a surprise. It just demonstrates that the bench, the entire bench, found absolutely nothing wrong with the way that the election was conducted, with the way that the president of Kenya was elected. I think that while it is not very, unusual to find judges dissenting, in this case, the clarity of the matter perhaps made it very easy for the judiciary to find, reach a decision very quickly and again in reason. I think that legally speaking, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It just speaks to just how clear the matter before them could have been. What I do think, though, when we get down to reading the black and white lines in those decisions, you actually might find different, arguments for arriving at the same conclusion. I think that different judges must have looked at different issues, must have discussed the issues differently, even though they arrive at the same decision. I think that that's what we shall see in the days to come when we get our hands on this decision.
And of the jurisprudence, in this case referring to Kenya and referring to what's going on in Uganda, the the jurisprudence that could have been witnessed here in Kenya would definitely differ in Uganda when it comes to matters to do with presidential petitions. I'll take you back to 2007 in Uganda, and that was when Dr. Kizza Besigye went to court, yes, and his court case was dismissed. What would you say to the ongoings in Kenya today, and how far or how mature Uganda is in terms of jurisprudence?
Well, what the Kenyan people are going through today, Uganda has gone through it twice. In 2001, where the election of President Museveni was contested, and in 2006, when the election of the president was again contested by his main challenger. So what Kenya has gone through, Uganda has been through twice. Only difference is that the Ugandan decisions in both 2001 and 2006 were decisions that were really split. The courts had so much time to decide on it, and they just couldn't find common ground. It boiled down to one casting vote, and that's how the elections were upheld. I think in terms of jurisprudence, I think Kenya must have learned a lot from Uganda. But I think in terms of process, in terms of how a court process should be, in terms of how a court should be arranged, how evidence should be adduced before court, Uganda has a lot to learn from Kenya, especially at the Supreme Court level, in terms of how sophisticated that court is, but also more importantly, how youthful that bench is. It's a very youthful bench. It demonstrates that the young people, the young lawyers in this part of the world are actually coming to the fore and being a part of the development of our jurisprudence. I think perhaps if the judges were much older, they may not have come up with a decision as quickly as they did.
That's for sure. Well, thank you so much, Nicholas. And your final remarks, Sanjay, if you don't mind, quite very briefly, in the interest of time. Sanjay, if you don't mind.
Like he said, the processes that the Kenyan courts have gone through to determine this were excellent. One thing that I think as Ugandans we need to pick up and learn is the courts need to allow live telecasts, especially on such cases. Like you rightly said, the past cases were not live telecasts and fully documented in terms of video recordings and audio recordings. I think in this particular case, that's something that I think we need to learn. And the other thing that I think is the acceptance by the opponent of the ruling. In our case, we've had, despite the court ruling, you find funny messages still continuing from the opponents, and therefore I think that this is a great learning curve for the region and for the people of Africa.
I have to cut you short, but thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking to us. It was an honor, and we look forward to doing this again in the near future. Well, those were the two gentlemen from Uganda giving us an experience and lessons learned. Unfortunately, we couldn't have our guests from Rwanda because their internet connection, their bandwidth issues. But well, we do say thank you so much. Over to you, James Smart. What do you have for us tonight?
Right, thank you very much, Joy. It's such a big day, such a big news day, not only for this country and East Africa, but a big day for the world. You've seen how we covered it electronically. Just how did we cover this on the news side? Walk with me as we do what we do best. And here, just to give you what we will call tomorrow's news today, as we've always done this, I managed to pull over my managing editor in the Sunday edition, just to give me, a clean look and a first-hand view of what exactly is the headline and just how the newspaper has covered this day. And the headline: but just as President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta's election has been upheld by the Supreme Court, this is how I've been covering it, and this is already out and already on the printer, as you might say it. Let's just give you a brief analysis here. Wanda, allow me to offer you a newspaper. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Big news day. Momentous occasion. We've covered it. I mean, everyone has been waiting for this Supreme decision. Everyone has waited, but it's Uhuru.
Yeah, finally it is. The day has come. And I think Kenyans now know who their next president is going to be. So think we need to move forward from that point now.
I mean, for the purpose, I mean, I'm just looking at, the headline, and, without fear of contradiction, it's the final step, as it were. This is it. This is, this is the man that now...
He is the man of the moment now, because right now, as with the last handle that was holding him before being sworn in, with him having gone past the last hurdle, then the next thing is now for him to be sworn in. So barring a catastrophe, there isn't anything that is going to stop him from being
just walk me some of the interesting stories, that we'll be able to see.
Maybe I can just give you an outline of kind of planning that went into this.
Yes.
We had looked at various scenarios, possibility of the Supreme Court ruling that upholding the IBC verdict, or the other way around. So we had looked at those scenarios and we had prepared ourselves from that. But basically the stories that, ultimately we ended up with the stories that are focusing on the petition, the process, and also the key highlights of what happened during the petition.
Yes.
We've also done Uhuru's journey. We've on page 6 you see a story. Okay, actually it is my story on page 6 that talks about Uhuru's journey to the apex, from a political greenhorn, a political novice, to the President of the Republic. A journey that has taken him roughly 23 years
to get here.
From the time he appeared in public as at least he appeared in political limelight, so to speak, up to where he is. And then we're also looking at, we have another story that looks at what next for Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, now that their political journey at this point in time seems to have hit some kind of a roadblock.
That's interesting, because, well, for Uhuru Kenyatta, it's obvious where he's moving on from here. He has to take over, the country, the responsibility and obligation of this country lies squarely on his shoulder. But for one man, Raila Odinga, who has been dominating this political scene for
about
since the 80s, it's interesting that for the first time we ask what next for Raila Odinga.
Yeah, actually that question has never been asked before, but considering that he has been in politics for that long and that he has invested so much and he has a vast network of political contacts, he's likely, definitely you can't wish him away. Whether he has a position or not, he is going to be a player in there.
I must ask you, Njoka, for my final question. If anyone were to, look for newspaper, what is that story that tell them to read tomorrow?
That story that I will tell him to read tomorrow, actually the two stories that we've mentioned, what next for Raila Odinga, that story that looks forward, and also the political journey of Uhuru Kenyatta. Those are the stories I will tell you you must read. They are must-read stories.
Njoka, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
You've done well. I'll allow you to keep that newspaper if
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. That is the newspaper tomorrow, if you like. It's Uhuru, tomorrow's news today. That and great profiles of what happened to the political journey that one Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has taken. What next for Raila Odinga, if you like? The great quotable quotes from this petition and from the judges, what they have to say. This tomorrow is just your say of and your own version of just what has happened in this country ever since the last week or so, and where we are in this country, all covered here on the Sunday Standard. You should grab your copy, Linda, actually. I would be able to, if you're here next to me, able to offer you a copy, but then again, you're worlds apart.
Are you going to grab a copy for me?
No. We're worlds apart. Let's be serious. Let's be honest. You have done here, I've done well, I believe. It's now handing over, to you to take us through the motions of what remains of our Choice 2013, Linda.
All right, James Smart, thank you so much. James Smart having a very interesting discussion there, and of course grabbing his own copy of the Standard. You need to get your own as early as you can tomorrow to tell you where exactly this country is heading after that all-important verdict by the Supreme Court. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta remains the President-elect of the Republic of Kenya. You are watching KTN, and we thank you for staying with us. We're covering this for you in a way that only we can. We are taking a short break. Stay with us.